All about the Raiders. The black and silver. Power to the people. Uh, yeah, of course. So the Oakland Raiders were once considered a AFL team back in 1960. Oakland wanted a franchise to go with their brand new spanking stadium, Oakland Coliseum. The Raiders were fantastic in the AFL. They were involved in a few key games in the AFL, especially the AFL championship that got them to Super Bowl II, as they were the second victim of the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl, getting Vince Lombardi a ride on his players' shoulders. The Raiders, the next season, would fall into two key games against the New York Jets, both with a positive and negative reaction. The positive reaction was the Raiders beating the New York Jets 43-32 in a late Sunday afternoon game. The problem was that the movie Heidi was supposed to be played at 7 o'clock for all the East Coast viewers by NBC. Unfortunately, the football game ran a lot longer because of fights and penalties. Usually, football games don't last 3 hours. Nowadays, they can last like 3 hours, 15 minutes, or whatever you want to call it, because of the TV timeouts. So, unfortunately, they played in the Heidi game. And basically, NBC President Julian Goodman was trying to get the switchboard in New York, basically saying that keep the football game on. We'll pay a penalty to Timex for showing Heidi after 7 o'clock. Unfortunately, he didn't get through. The switchboard blew because of fans saying, "What's happening to the football game?" So the Heidi Bowl was huge in a way. The Raiders won the game. Their two touchdowns were not seen on the East Coast, but thankfully, David Brinkley of the Huntley Brinkley report said that they would show the two touchdowns. And with Kurt Gowdy doing play-by-play again, he called those two touchdowns. However, that game actually was for the best because it made TV networks keep the game on in the local area. For example, they would not cut away from Heidi until in the New York area until the Jets game was over. So basically, everyone knows about the disclaimer after the 4 o'clock game says that after the game, we'll get you to your regular scheduled program. Well, except on the West Coast, the programming will be on as planned because the West Coast is 3 hours behind the East Coast. So anyway, the Raiders would end up facing the Jets again, this time for the AFL title and a chance to go to Super Bowl III. Sadly, though, the Jets got the revenge on the Raiders. Well, it was at Chase Stadium where the Jets played. Jets went on to win Super Bowl III. Raiders were peeved, very peeved. The Raiders would be really peeved in 1972 after the Immaculate Reception didn't go their way. And of course, at the time, the rules said that no ball can touch two offensive players consecutively. And people thought that it touched Pittsburgh player John Frenchie Fuqua in the shoulder and not the defender. I forget his name. And went right to Franco Harris. The Raiders were robbed. But here's the funny thing about that game. People forget that the Raiders actually had a small chance to go downfield and kick the winning field goal. They actually had 30 seconds to try to make a drive. Ken Stabler could not do his job. And so the Raiders lost. The Raiders also got pissed off in 1975 during the AFC title game when they accused Pittsburgh's groundskeepers of not keeping the ice away from the middle of the field. Basically, they had like fast-speeding receivers, basically trying to slow down the receivers, and of course, Pittsburgh won that game. The Raiders were always think they had a conspiracy. Al Davis, who was the owner of the Raiders, made no bones about it, and Pete Rozelle was not too happy with Davis getting mad at him for all these things. However, the Raiders did get one their way in 1977 when they were facing the New England Patriots. The Raiders were 13-1 that season, and the Patriots were the only team that give the Raiders a loss, and they were close to knocking Oakland off for the second time. However, a phantom roughing the passer call on Ray Sugarbear Hamilton helped Oakland get the winning touchdown. So anyway, the next season after that, the Raiders would be involved in a couple of key playoff games. But more on that later. So anyway, the Raiders had problems. Al Davis wanted to move the Oakland Raiders to Los Angeles and greener pastures and a better stadium, Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Al, Al Davis got lucky that he got the lawyers to deconstruct his deal with Pete Rozelle. Pete Rozelle was obviously pissed off at himself. It's like, why did I have to let Al Davis ruin me? Al Davis doesn't control me, and I don't control him. So anyway, Al Davis sent the Raiders to LA, got its Super Bowl title in 1984. Could have been much more. But anyway, the Raiders then, after learning that Oakland was going to make a big renovation to their new stadium, to the Oakland Coliseum, and try to entice the Raiders to come back, the Raiders left Los Angeles for Oakland again. Oakland turned their spacious, nice, scenic outfield for A's games into practically a football bowl again, ruining the sightlines. The Raiders would end up doing okay coming back from LA to Oakland. They were close to get to Super Bowl 35 against the Giants, but the Ravens defense stopped them cold. Rich Gannon would have his revenge 2 years later when he led the Raiders to the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. The only problem is not only did Tampa Bay win and sack and pick Rich Gannon a lot, John Gruden, for some reason, was the coach of the Buccaneers, the opposing team, and the Raiders didn't really change their offensive signs, so Gruden fucking knew about things. So Gruden, unfortunately, out-Raidered the Raiders. Raiders tried desperately, but basically they fell flat. Bill Callahan didn't help, Tom Cable didn't help, and so was Jamarcus Russell, who didn't help. The number 1 overall pick, basically, he was supposed to be the quarterback star. He was great with LSU, but unfortunately, he fell into a bit of bother, basically gaining lots of weight and basically being ineffective as hell. The Raiders did come back a few years later. Spurred on by Al Davis's recent death, the Raiders went hot. They actually went 12-4. Unfortunately, they ended up not having to play in the divisional round because basically they lost to the 13-3 Denver Broncos. So the Raiders had to head to Texas, an 8-8 team that won the AFC South. You're thinking, well, advantage Raiders. One problem, though, the Raiders had bad news when Derek Carr went down with an injury. So unfortunately, he couldn't do anything, and now they did Connor Cook, the Michigan State product, and Houston easily won that game. The Raiders are now scheduled to move to Las Vegas next year, that being 2020. It's not going to be the same in California without the Raiders. Moving to Las Vegas? Really? So anyway, let's talk about the Oakland Raiders team I am doing for the What If. It's not the Immaculate Reception team. It's not the team that got ruined by that Pittsburgh groundskeeper. And it's not the 2003 Raiders that should have won the Super Bowl because obviously they made the finals, so they were disqualified. It's the 1977-78 Oakland Raiders. You're asking yourself, that team? How come? Pourquoi? Well, because the way the Raiders got robbed by the officials actually was a legit conversation. In 1977, the Raiders played on New Year's Eve against the Baltimore Colts in Baltimore at Memorial Stadium. And the famous Ghost to the Post, when Stabler found Dave Casper, hence the name Ghost, in the end zone for a touchdown. Raiders tied it up, went to overtime, and then double overtime when Dave Casper again made a touchdown catch, sending the Baltimore Colts home. The Raiders would then take on the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos? Yeah, those Denver Broncos, the ones with Lyle Sader and Craig Morton. The Raiders got robbed. I saw the play on YouTube, and I know this is definitely, they have a case. Of course, they got one back with the Holy Roller play, which I described in the Chargers What If. But anyway, the Raiders got robbed. Rob Lytle, running back for the Broncos, was going to the end zone, and then unfortunately he dropped the ball, and the Raiders had a chance for a 99-yard touchdown by, I believe, George Atkinson. One problem, though, the officials called in a touchdown, saying that he had stretched the ball across the goal line. Replays would show that it wasn't even close. Lytle did fumble the ball. So the Raiders had a point, and I think Al Davis had a point too, and that was probably one of the straws that broke the back, camel's back, if you will. So now, let's talk about the 77 Raiders. At 11-3, they would have played the 78 Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys would not have to deal with Craig Morgan, their former star quarterback. So as you can see, the 77 Raiders had very good offense. Stabler, Van Egan, Davis, Branch, Valentikoff, and Casper. Dallas counters with Staubach, Dorsett, Newhouse, Pearson, Richards, and Dupree. Here we go. At the Superdome. And at the Superdome, it's not a happy ending. The Raiders lose. Yikes. I thought they were going to win. It was close, though. 30-23. Let's go through the Super Bowl quarter by quarter thing. Oakland gets, in their first possession, they get it at the 45-yard line and do well. Stabler passes to Dave Casper, who scores a touchdown. It's 7-0 Raiders after one quarter. After the second quarter, saw one touchdown. It was 10-7 for the Raiders. And then Dallas gets the ball back in the first few minutes of the third quarter when they pound the ball. Basically, Staubach does not throw a pass the whole time. And Dorsett, after a 28-yard run, got Robert Newhouse to pound for a touchdown. Dallas makes it 14-10. And then Butch Johnson catches a big pass in the end zone from Staubach with 3:33 left. Touchdown makes it 21-10. And then came quarter number 4, when the Raiders thought they had the chance. Evan Herrera made it 24-10. But Oakland, on their first possession after that field goal, gets a touchdown. Stabler to Valentikoff, who easily goes in the end zone, 24-17. Dallas eats up a lot of clock, more than 7 minutes of play until Tony Dorsett hits a touchdown, 30-17. Raiders basically fell flat. Van Egan fumbles, and then Staubach ends up throwing a pass, interception. Raiders think they have a chance, but Stabler gets picked off. Dallas punts. Oakland does score a touchdown and they can't get the extra point. Oakland decides to kick off. Dallas runs the clock down to 2 minutes, and then they punt it away. Oakland has a chance from their own 26. Sadly, though, Stabler had a last-ditch pass from his 44 be dropped by Siani. Dallas ends up winning the game 30-23. So Casper from Stabler in the first quarter. Staubach to Drew Pearson. Earl Mann with a field goal for Oakland. Newhouse with that 1-yard touchdown run. Butch Johnson with a catch. Herrera made 24-10. Valentikoff from Stabler. Tony Dorsett made it 30-17. And I can't believe they missed the extra point. Cliff Branch also does that. Tony Dorsett is your freaking hero. He's my hero, baby. Van Egan 75 yards running. Dorsett went 05. Newhouse almost outran the Van Egan by himself, and he was the number 2. Stabler threw for 3 touchdowns, but threw for 4 interceptions. That's amazing. 12 for 24, 194. Staubach 14 for 20, 174, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The only pick was by Jack Tatum. The defense for the Cowboys had picks from Mel Renfro, Ray Hughes, and Cliff Harris with 2. Earl Mann kicked the field goal. Herrera hit a 44-yard field goal, even though he missed from 36 and 42. So, yeah, Oakland would feel screwed out of a Super Bowl. I wonder how Pete Rozelle gets blamed by Al Davis. We'll never know.